Hello, welcome to our lecture series. Today we want to look at community needs assessment. Any action in terms of development and improving people's lives begins with an understanding of the needs of the community. What is it that they lack? What is the magnitude of the problems or the issues or the things, the resources that they lack? That becomes the first step in trying to help a community lead a dignified and quality life. Needs assessment, therefore, becomes an important step in community development, in social work, and in other interventions that seek to address the problems that are faced by members of the community. This is why we want to look at needs assessment. It's a wide area. However, our discussion today will focus on two principal areas. One, we want to understand the meaning of needs assessment, and then we will look at the purpose of needs assessment. Welcome to this discussion. We need to we need to begin by understanding certain concepts, like I said. One is need. What's a need? A need is defined as a situation or a circumstance in which something is lacking and such a thing is necessary and it requires some course of action in order to address it. A need can also be understood as a dissatisfaction at a point of time and in a given context. That is, if we feel dissatisfied because of certain things are lacking at any moment, at any time, or in any given situation, then that becomes a need. We need to notice that needs, when they become severe, may lead to serious consequences or outcomes. For instance, people can experience poor health if, say, they completely lack water. Some can die of starvation if the need is food and it is not satisfied. Of course, there are other consequences that are social in nature, such as poverty as a problem can lead to crime, can lead to moral decay, such as prostitution, among others. That is why understanding needs in terms of what they are and coming up with the interventions to address them is important, because in doing so, we stand a chance of protecting the community from sliding into destruction. When needs or wants are backed by, say, purchasing power, they become economic demands. So that if we say we have a need for water, but we lack the ability to purchase that water, then it simply remains a need. But if we have the resources to buy water, purchase it, and have it, then that particular need becomes an economic demand. That understanding of need is important. Needs come in many forms, especially at the community level. So I want us to look at the various types of needs. that are found in the community. One is called perceived needs. Perceived needs refer to an individual's own judgment about the necessity or benefits of a particular service. These needs are also understood as gaps in services based on what individuals feel about their own needs or the needs of the community. Perceived needs may also be understood as needs that are felt by people themselves, and they indicate gaps that people are experiencing. A need which is a requirement of the community and which, if not met, becomes a demand, they may produce distress in the community. So when you talk about perceived needs, they are simply things that we currently lack, but we think we need to have them. And since having them improves our lives. The other type of need is called expressed needs. And expressed needs are those needs that are defined, they are needs that are defined by the number of people who have sought to help, and they focus on circumstances where feelings are translated into action. These are needs that have been moved from the level of being felt to that of being brought to the attention of authorities at various levels through requests, complaints, petitions, etc. And a felt need becomes an expressed need when people put what they want into actions. For example, members of the community might decide to ask the government to construct for them a health center because the one that they currently seek medical services or health services from is very far from the community, and therefore there is need for them to have a health center nearby. So when members of the community come out and express their desire through petitions, demonstrations, and other means to the authorities to address a given need, then that need becomes an expressed need. In other words, when a community lacks something and it goes ahead and brings that matter to the attention of authorities or service providers or duty bearers, then that particular need is no longer a perceived need, but rather an expressed need. The other type of needs is called relative needs. And relative need refers to the gap between level of services existing in one community and those existing in similar communities or geographic areas. Relative needs occurs when two groups with similar characteristics do not receive a similar service or treatment. For example, when a community in a given region may have access to adequate clean water, whereas another community in the same region does not have the same, then relative need is said to have occurred. And is basically concerned with equity and must consider differences in population and social pathology. In other words, communities always compare themselves in terms of what they have and what other communities that are similar to them have. So if another community that have similar characteristics as them have certain things that they don't have, then they will experience what we call relative needs. So relative needs is basically the difference in needs or the difference in access to social services that a community lacks relative to the other community. That is principally what is meant by the relative need. Let's now move to another level, which is needs assessment. we have looked at what is meant by the needs and the various types of needs at the community level. We now want to focus on needs assessment, understand what it is. A needs assessment can be understood as a systematic process of determining and addressing needs or gaps between current conditions and desired conditions or wants. It may also be defined as a process of identifying and determining how to fill in the gaps between a community's current and desired state. When conducted well, this assessment can provide important insight into a community's processes and also highlight areas within the community that may require interventions by the government or donors to address. Generally, needs assessment involves systematically asking questions, comparing answers, and making informed decisions about what to do next in order to improve human conditions as well as community development. It is therefore an important process that determines the needs in a particular area, such as health, education, employment, or housing, as a basis of planning or bringing about change. In other words, the sole purpose why we do needs assessment is in order to understand what is missing in the community in terms of what they lack, and then use that information to work out the kind of interventions that can be used to help in addressing that particular problem. Why then do we do needs assessment? So I want us to look at purposes of needs assessment. One of the main reasons why we undertake needs assessment is for planning. And we need to observe that effective planning and action needs accurate and up-to-date information about the needs of the community. In this regard, needs assessment helps in establishing not only what community needs, but also those that require prioritization and immediate action. We need to observe that the needs of the community can be many, that outstrips the available resources, and therefore there is need to seek from the community what they consider as those that require to be prioritized when it comes to interventions. For that purpose, therefore, planners can use reports of needs assessment to frame problems or needs of the community, and in doing so, such effort enables the inclusion of such needs into the strategic development plans that are used to initiate and plan developmental activities in the community. Planners can also adopt needs assessment reports and recommendations in the allocation of resources to various departmental development projects in the community, because you need to justify why resources are being allocated to some sectors and not others. Besides, certain sectors might receive more resources than others. There is need for justification as to why that's the case. One of the supportive documents that could be used to justify why certain sectors have been given priority and more resources allocated to them than others is the needs assessment report. Needs assessment, therefore, is conceived as important prerequisite in strategic planning since it provides vital data that planners use to craft strategic development plans. The other reason as to why community needs assessment is done is to understand the dynamics in the community. We have to appreciate the fact that societies keep on changing, and therefore what was a strength to a community at one point might not be the same today. Or what was a problem or opportunity for a community at one point might not be the same at another point. That is why assessments are normally done to understand the changes that have occurred in the community. Because if these changes are not understood, then it becomes difficult for interventions to address the specific needs of the community. So needs assessment helps in appreciating the changes that have occurred in the community. So that, for instance, an assessment can use the baseline information, that is, what the situation was before intervention, and then later on an assessment is done to understand if there are certain changes that have occurred as a result of that particular intervention. So assessment results help us to project trends and also guide us in developing strategies that may be used to address what is happening in the community. Because of this, there is need for programs and interventions that have been put in the community to be improved from time to time, because the issues that they were designed to address might change, and if that were to occur, then it's also important that changes in the community are also done, rather changes or adjustments in the programs or interventions are done to address those particular dynamics. So that one of the reasons why, or one of the purposes why we undertake needs assessment is to understand the changes that have occurred in the community. When that happens, then change agents and development agencies are equipped with the latest information that they can now use to adjust the programs that they have, so that the needs of the community as they change are addressed. And in doing so, change agents do not stick to issues as they were 10 years ago, because community changes in terms of demographics, age, gender, and other issues that change. Level of education change. Sometimes it increases, sometimes it decreases. So all these things need to be understood, and the only one way of understanding them is through the needs assessment. Needs assessment is also done for purposes of building partnerships between the change agents and other stakeholders at the community level. Development agencies and change agents must establish collaborative relationships and partnerships with project beneficiaries. The needs assessment offers an important opportunity for interaction between different stakeholders, that is, service providers and service recipients. And once this is happening, a partnership is done. This interaction can form an important step in creating trust between different stakeholders and also in cultivating a sense of community ownership of development projects. and securing sustainability of such projects. We need to notice that once needs assessment is done, it enables change managers or change agents to understand exactly what community consider as their problems, and therefore interventions that are put in place are those that address the problems as given out by members of the community. When communities feel that the interventions are addressing their felt needs, they are likely to trust the process and develop a closer working relationship with development agencies. And in that way, a partnership and collaboration is built. Working together through this assessment between change agents and members of the community can also result in improved service delivery, optimal use of existing resources, and the expansion or creation of new services. Why do we say so? We say so because needs assessment helps change agents to understand the status of the community and whether or not the intervention of the services being provided are addressing the specific issues that community outlined were their concerns. That, therefore, offers the change agents opportunity to adjust their services as and when necessary to suit the needs of the community. Needs assessments can therefore be used to build relationship and partnership among those who have a stake in the community. The conversations and the discussions that go on when needs assessment is being done may form a long-lasting relationship between the various stakeholders. Such a relationship can become an important social capital that change agents and members of communities can employ to strengthen, to utilize the resources that exist, and also to explore ways on how they can grow from strength to strength. So one of the reasons why needs assessments are taken is for purposes of building relationships between different stakeholders. A firm and strong relationship can be an important resource when it comes to the utilization of resources as well as implementation of interventions that address the needs that have been established through the needs assessment. The last purpose for our discussion of needs assessment is resource mobilization. Community assessment reports share information and opinions of different stakeholders about current as well as their desired status of the community. And the assessment reports may also reveal the needs in the community as well as the types of resources required to move the community to the desired state. However, community needs assessment is not just about identifying weaknesses in the community, but also the strengths of the community, which may be in terms of resources such as land, physical resources, human expertise, and even available social capital. These resources can be useful when the needs of the society or the community are being addressed. Community needs assessment, therefore, may aid in the identification and mobilization of essential resources needed to address community needs. Remember, we noted earlier that the partnership that is built, which is a product of needs assessment, can become important when we want to move the community forward, so that the element of volunteership can come in. Members of the community can also avail the resources that they think, if properly utilized or put into use, can help them in addressing the kind of problems that they have in the community. Local experts, professionals, and others may also volunteer their services. When they feel that the needs assessment was done, they were engaged, and therefore the problems that have been identified through the needs assessment, they too identify with them. And in that case, they may offer their services free because they perceive change agents as an important avenue through which they can partner with in addressing the problems that's affecting members of the community. That is where we stop today in terms of what is meant by needs assessment, as well as the reasons why needs assessments are done. Next, in our discussion on needs assessment, we shall look at the needs assessment tools. Thank you so much for your time.